Have you ever wondered about the man behind Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard? A compelling character, he was not just the founder of a controversial religion, but also a successful writer and an avid traveler. His journeys took him to Asia, where he developed a deep understanding of the region, even though he was just a teenager at the time. Interestingly, these experiences would later serve him well. In 1942, he was recruited into the United States Naval Intelligence Service. Hubbard's assignment was no small feat. He was tasked with war reporting and spy work in Southeast Asia. But here's a fascinating twist. Hubbard likely had a deck identity, a common practice in the intelligence world to disguise one's true role. According to these files, he was a captain over a U.S. warship. This enigmatic figure, who we know as L. Ron Hubbard, was more than just the founder of Scientology. He was also a man of mystery, intrigue, and intelligence. Let's delve deeper into Hubbard's post-war activities. Post-World War II, Hubbard found himself in the corridors of the Oak Knoll Military Hospital, engrossed in intelligence projects. This was a time of great change and uncertainty, a world trying to heal its wounds. Hubbard, with his unique perspective and unquenchable curiosity, turned his attention to the study of the human mind. He was particularly interested in the effects of war trauma and brainwashing, seeking to understand the impact of such experiences on the mind and body. This was the period when Hubbard began to lay down the foundations of Dianetics, a term he coined to describe his new philosophy. Dianetics, derived from the Greek words dia meaning through and nous meaning mind, was Hubbard's attempt to provide a methodical approach to understanding and improving the human mind. But the research on mind control that Hubbard was involved in was not without its controversies. It was shaped by two opposing goals. On one hand, the therapeutic application of Dianetics sought to relieve war returnees from the effects of brainwashing, a noble cause that Hubbard championed. This was the white side of the research, the side seeking to heal. On the other hand, there was the black side, the side that saw the potential in using mind control for their own purposes. They saw the possibility of programming human combat robots or even creating lone assassins. This darker side of the research was a stark contrast to Hubbard's intentions, and it led to a conflict. This conflict was the catalyst that pushed Hubbard to distance himself from his intelligence connections. He saw the potential in Dianetics to help people, not to harm them. He didn't want his work to be used for nefarious purposes. So he made a decision. He had himself mustered out and established Dianetics as an independent doctrine. He put all his knowledge into a book, the first book on Dianetics, and published it for the world to see. Dianetics, the modern science of mental health. Hubbard's decision to distance himself from intelligence connections led to the birth of Dianetics. The deck identities Hubbard assumed during his intelligence career sparked controversy. This was a time of secrets and subterfuge where identities were as interchangeable as a deck of cards. Critics of L. Ron Hubbard would later accuse him of fabricating these covert personas, casting a shadow of doubt over his credibility. Yet, these charges stir up an intriguing question. Could it be that Hubbard was duty-bound to shroud certain details of his life in secrecy due to the nature of his work? It's a thought that lends a different perspective to the controversy. His time in the intelligence service, his role at Oak Knoll Hospital, each cloaked in a deck identity, became fuel for critics. But even amidst these controversies, Hubbard's influence continued to grow. His work in the field of the human mind, notably Dianetics, started to gain traction, and the foundations of what would later become Scientology were being laid. Despite the controversies, Hubbard's influence continued to grow. From the very onset, Hubbard and Scientology were under the watchful eyes of intelligence services. Imagine, as early as 1950, the organization was already raising eyebrows in the corridors of power. Whether it was the unconventional teachings, the possibility to reveal brainwashing through Dianetics, or the sheer audacity of its founder, Scientology, quickly found itself on the radar of the United States intelligence apparatus. In fact, it didn't stop there. The organization and its Dianetics was so dangerous to the MK Ultra applications, it managed to land on the enemies list of none other than US President Richard Nixon. Talk about ruffling a few feathers. But what did this mean for Scientology? Well, it led to its takeover by the so-called Deep State in 1972. For those unversed with the term, the Deep State refers to a group of individuals within the government who operate outside of the democratic system, pursuing their own agenda. One can only imagine the impact this had on Scientology, an organization that was already pushing boundaries and challenging norms. Suddenly, it found itself under the control of a clandestine group, its every move scrutinized and influenced by unseen forces. But times are changing. With the decline of the deep state, we find ourselves asking, what does the future hold for Scientology? As we delve deeper into this provocative question, let's remember that the essence of Scientology was always about leading humanity towards a true civilization. Can it reclaim this mission in the face of changing times? We'll explore this further in our next segment. In today's digital age, Hubbard's teachings are more widespread than ever. The advent of the internet has transformed the landscape of information dissemination, making Scientology's doctrines accessible to the global audience. This digitization has created a paradoxical situation where control becomes challenging, yet the reach is unprecedented. The teachings of L. Ron Hubbard, once confined to the pages of nearly 100 books and thousands recorded lectures, are now a mouse click away for anyone curious about the tenets of Dianetics. This digital revolution has provided Scientology with an opportunity to connect with a broader audience and potentially debunk misconceptions that have surrounded it for decades. However, this widespread access also poses a challenge. With information at everyone's fingertips, the deep state's control over Scientology teachings is becoming increasingly difficult. The rewriting of the Scientology materials since 1972 become known today. People ask for the original tech and bridge. Scientologists are leaving the church and start studying and applying the tech and philosophy on their own. Yet, amidst this digital chaos, there lies an opportunity. With the alleged collapse of the so-called deep state, Scientology might be at a crossroads. It may now have the chance to revert to its original mission, as envisioned by Hubbard, to lead humanity towards a true civilization, free of war and criminality and drugs and abounding insanity. Now full of creativity and wealth for all, regardless of one's perspective, L. Ron Hubbard's influence on spiritual science and human understanding remains undeniable.